This is The Soul Mirror with Saima, and tonight we're exploring the soul's role in learning with our amazing guest, Russell Van Brocklen. Russell introduces us to soul first literacy, a way of moving beyond shame, fear, or self doubt and guiding children and adults alike toward self trust and authentic growth. And this isn't just about reading or writing, it's about how we see ourselves and how we believe in ourselves and how the soul leads us back to confidence. So, Russell, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're warmly welcome. It's my pleasure to have you here. So, Russell, what does soul first literacy really mean to you?
Well, I think that you nailed it when you were talking about one word that keeps coming up, your idea of fear. All right. And how do we get past that? Because that is crippling to the soul. What is generally happening is let's first look at the science of dyslexia. Where does fear come into this? If you look at a book, I'm going to tell everybody it's the top selling book in my field, the best one. It's called Overcoming Dyslexia, second edition, Dr. Sally Shaywitz, medical doctor from Yale. All right. It's brain scans. So I'm going to have you get the book. It's on page 78, figure number 23. So what this shows is it shows the dyslexic brain and a typical brain. If you look at the typical brain, in the back part, you have all this massive neural activity, and the dyslexic has virtually none. But the front part of the dyslexic brain is about 2.5 times overactive. But where does this cause the fear? It typically happens when your child's in early elementary school. Let's call it 5 through 8. And every other student is learning to read, and your child isn't. They're falling further and further behind. They are scared, especially young girls, that they're going to be held back for a year. So in other words, repeating their grade while their friends move on. This causes a tremendous amount of fear. And it's that fear that for a very small percentage of dyslexics who are highly intelligent and very motivated, where they just put so much pressure on themselves, so much shame, so much fear, that it's clinically dangerous. And then for a very small percentage, the solution will present itself and they will move on, and this will become normal for them. But for most students, they will be held back, which is absolutely devastating for their soul, for their how they just view themselves. Now they're in with strangers who are younger with that, and their friends have moved on. So what I wanted to discuss today was how not to have that happen.
I really
So
appreciate, Russell, that how you're explaining that. I feel that it really captures the idea that literacy isn't just about reading or writing, but about connecting deeply with ideas and with ourselves. And again, I love how you framed it as something that comes from the heart as much as the mind. And it really highlights the power of learning in a more conscious and soulful way.
right. And that is I told you the theory, but let's get down to the basics. How can parents, how can teachers reduce this fear, reduce this shame, and essentially give the soul back to the dyslexic child? So I'm going to again point to Overcoming Dyslexia, second edition, page 78, figure 23. I discussed the back part of the brain. Now let's discuss the front part. The dyslexic is 2.5 times overactive. So that part of the brain, according to Yale, does two things. It does word analysis followed by articulation. And I'm going to show you now how to work with a dyslexic child and get their writing up from the kindergarten level to about that. Think of it from a 5-year-old to an old 7-year-old, beginning 8-year-old. All right. So how do we do that? Here's the other secret, because I'm going to focus on writing. A lot of people are concerned about reading. If a student can write a word, they can read it. So if they can write a word, they can read it. It's so much easier teaching writing. So what I'm going to do is give you my standard example. The student, her name is Sarah. She's 10 years old, reading and writing as if she's a 7-year-old. And her favorite thing in the world is swimming. She's on the swim team. She's taken a special class so she can be an assistant swim teacher for the real little kids. She gets in the pool every chance she can get. So what we have you do as the parent, as the instructor, is we have you type out, not on an iPad, not on an iPhone, not handwriting, typing out on a laptop with a real keyboard. You type out hero, plus sign. What are we talking about? Then we exchange hero for Sarah. Sarah, plus sign. What are we talking about? We take a list. We had her write 10 things she likes, 10 she doesn't like. We take the thing she likes the most, swimming, and we swap that out for what are we talking about? Swimming. So we got Sarah, plus sign, swimming. Now we need to remove the plus sign and switch it out for a word. When I do this at major dyslexia conferences, most of the special ed teachers get it wrong. Here's what happens. I ask them, does Sarah like or dislike swimming? And what they do is, because they're educated people, is they select like, and then they add an S to make it correct grammar, and they say Sarah likes swimming. But that's not what I ask, I tell them. I said Sarah would have put like, because that's what she did, and then she would put in Sarah likes swimming. She doesn't know how to add the S, because that the back part of the brain for her has almost no neural activity where this typically is done. So we have to find a way to get her to learn how to add the S so it's grammatically correct. And the traditional method that millionaires use is so complicated, multisensory. It's crazy. But now we have modern neuroscience from this century. So what I'm going to tell you is, here's my modification to have her write it out correctly. We have Sarah read what she wrote out loud. Sarah likes swimming. Then I ask Sarah the most basic question. Sarah, does that sound generally correct? She's going to say no. And I'm going to say fix it. Sarah likes swimming. You have her practice that with 10 likes and 10 dislikes until everything is done correctly. That is, like and dislike is a very simple form of word analysis. Then we're going to go because and start giving reasons. The reasons after because are a form of articulation. Word analysis, articulation, that's what the front part of the brain does. That's 2.5 times overactive. This is why she learns at an accelerated rate. What Sarah did is she would put, Sarah likes swimming because it's fun. Now what we have is a string of misspelled words. I'm going to tell you how to fix that right now, very simply. Much easier than anything you've ever imagined. What we do is we tell Sarah to go ahead and ask any question on how to correct what she did. If she asks, for example, did I spell fun? And she didn't put the period down. She can ask, did I spell fun correctly? Well, probably not. Then you can say, okay, you type out fun. She copies it. All right. But kids don't do that. They drop the period. And what you tell them is, once you put the period down, if there's a major, and I mean major grammatical mistake, then you got to retype the entire thing. All right. Or this is where you get them, a spelling mistake. So they have a spelling mistake. Now they got to retype it. Usually between 3 and 13 times. Once she gets around 9 to 10 times, she keeps saying, I'm not going to make that mistake. And she makes it. She hyper concentrates more and more to the point at 9 to 10 to 13 times, you can start seeing sweat coming down their forehead sometimes. And that extraordinary concentration of, I'm not going to make that mistake, that's where the magic happens. And eventually it's correct. You do 20 of those, 10 likes, 10 dislikes until they're all correct. Then reason 1 and reason 2, 20 of those. And then reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. 20 of those until it's all done correct. For a 10-year-old, that could take 2 weeks to 6 weeks. For a second grader, you might be looking at 3 months, maybe 4. But what I just told you is how we take the student writing as a 5-year-old and we increase it to an old 7-year-old or a young 8-year-old. You're talking multiple grade level of increase in just a few months. That's the starting point. Okay? But quickly, the rest of it, the kid's not going to want to do the work. So you have to find their specialty. This is where you give them their spark, their area of extreme interest and ability. You ask them, it's a Saturday morning, they can do whatever they want, go anywhere, what would they do? And they would tell you that's their specialty. You find an audiobook and a printed book in that area, and you focus on that until they're at grade level. And then next, you don't ask a general to a specific question the way they do in schools. For a dyslexic, that's like grabbing fog. You ask a specific to a general question. Here's why. If you ask a dyslexic in their speciality, do they have ideas flying around their head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So what we have to do is to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So for example, if you ask a dyslexic, what effect did Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech have on the American civil rights movement in the 1960s? They're not going to know what to do. It's like grabbing fog. But if you ask them what personally compelled Martin Luther King to give his famous speech, you find the answer in his biography, and then that answer will give you another question. You answer that. That answer will give you another question. You do that. And that forces the dyslexic brain to organize itself by thinking in a linear manner. So during the intervention period, until they're at grade level, you have them working from in their speciality, teaching from the specific to the general, word analysis followed by articulation. And then you'll see them explode.
That example, Russell, really illustrates the challenge perfectly. And I love how you highlighted that modern traditional methods can sometimes overcomplicate things and that addressing a child's fear often comes to, simplicity and presence and genuine understanding. And again, like your example really, shows that guiding children gently and supporting the natural way of processing can be so much more effective than forcing them into rigid approaches.
Right. And one thing parents keep coming back to me on, they said, what happens? Can we ever send them back to a typical classroom? And the answer is yes. Let me give you an example. Last December 2024, I met with Kimberly. I'm writing a book on her experience with her son Reed right now. She just spent $700 having all her kids tested. They're homeschooled. Reed was midway through fifth grade. He scored at the beginning of third grade, reading and writing, so about a grade level and a half behind. If he were in a public school special education program, he was expected to increase by 1.86 points for the rest of the school year. That didn't happen. He increased by 20 to a little bit above grade level. Kimberly did this following that process, not all day, every day, like the schools had him, but but 30-minute sessions a week. And I worked with her for a half an hour a week to guide her along the process. If Reed went in to public school in the spring semester, he would have been placed in special education. They wouldn't really know what to do with him. He would have been very frustrated. But in the summer, his friends came to him and they said, Reed, we want you with us in public school to be with him socially. Now now that he's at grade level, he's in public school in normal classes, doing just fine because Kimberly did what every parent dreamed, getting their kid at grade level. And she did that in a little under 6 months. That's how powerful this is.
Indeed, that's powerful and that's such a refreshing lens at the same time. Now, like you emphasize self-trust and the antidote as and the antidote to shame. So is there a simple daily practice that helps rebuild that trust step by step?
Yes, if you're looking, once you get this done, a lot of parents are asking, because they keep coming back to literacy. They keep coming back to, I want to get my kid to learn to read better. All right. There is a solution to that. It's quite simple. I want you to imagine you're going to see a movie, and in the movie, you read a review from somebody with an Ivy League education, and they tell you exactly what happened. People hate that. What I say, pick a movie that you really like, narrow it down to a one-word universal theme, then discuss how the actors, the director, and the writer, how well they did with that universal theme. That's how you review a movie. For children, the easiest thing to do to help them expand their vocabulary in something that they will actually enjoy is, again, go back to their book, ask what it is that the hero wants to do. If they don't know what that is, go read the book, listen to it, and find that information. Now they know what they're going for. And I'm just going to give you the most famous book that I work with. It's on Walt Disney's biography, Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination. So what would happen is we ask, well, what is it that Walt wants to do? We have that written out in a sentence. Then what we're looking to do is just take the most important word in that sentence. That's your base universal theme. All right. It tends to be quite broad, but we want to match that for what's best in your mind. So then we would go to the thesaurus, and parents typically pick about 5 words, maybe 10. I have the student type out the base universal theme, go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, pick out their favorite definition, type it out, and do it for the 5 words, and see if there's a word there that best matches in their head, which they typically find. And then they type out that word and that definition, obviously. Then they go and they find who is the hero, I'm sorry, who is the ultimate villain, a person or a concept that prevents the hero from accomplishing their goals. They find that out and they put that into a sentence. And then we repeat that. And I hear this from parents all the time. My kid won't do the work. You're in their speciality. They will do the work because they're so interested. Or if the kid is attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, you can't get the kid to calm down. Find their specialty, give them stuff in that, and they're laser focused for hours. The problem is not getting them to do the work. It's stopping them from doing the work. All right. So I've had kids, they wouldn't stop for mundane things like homework, eating, going to bed, going to school. And they do that after about 3 to 6 months. You're going to see them build a vocabulary starting out of dozens of evolved words and then hundreds. And they remember these definitions for years. That's how you increase their reading level very quickly in a way that they would actually like doing it.
I see. Yes, that's such a clear and empowering way to put it, Russell. And I mean, that perspective is so meaningful. I really appreciate that how you break it down into something we can actually do every day, step by step, and it makes self trust feel achievable, not abstract.
Yes. So basically, that what we're looking at is how the first 2 steps, how we get things moving. A lot of parents are saying, well, how can we pick out their book and their audiobook? How do we find that how do we find their speciality? Because I gave you a general approach, but how do we specifically do it? If you'd like some help with that, easiest thing to do is just to go to dyslexiaclasses.com, plural with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com. There's a button there that says download free report. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a guide that says the 3 reasons your child's having trouble in school due to dyslexia and how to get past it. Then just go to my online calendar, set up a free 30-minute presentation. I'll meet with you and your child. And at the end of that, you will have their book and audiobook or a version of it that's very customized to them.
That's surely going to be beneficial for all our listeners out there, Russell. Now, for parents, teachers, or even adults who feel behind, like what's the first soulful step, a short step towards shifting from shame to self trust?
The easiest thing to do is find out the kid's speciality. But people are just shocked at this. But I can tell you, I have worked with some extraordinarily motivated kids. I'm just going to go to the most motivated kids I've ever worked with. You step outside that speciality, their motivation's down 50% at least. A typical kid's down pushing 80. And then the school teaches them from the general to the specific, which we don't learn. It's like grabbing fog. And they certainly don't do word analysis followed by articulation. It makes learning extraordinarily difficult. So what you do is we find out what their speciality is. Let me give you an example. I was speaking to a new client the other night. The only thing he cared about, not only was he had reading and writing issues, he was also mildly autistic, which made things a bit more complicated. He only cared about watching science videos on a platform that was designed for his age. All he cared about. And what he hated was history. So I said, I'm going to give you some homework. I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to have you read a book on World War II. He's like, if I got to read a book on World War II, I'll just do it. He's like, he's going to muddle through. I said, what's your favorite video on that? And he said, this one on chemistry. I said, okay, your homework is to watch that video on chemistry. His dad's going to send me the actual video, and I'll have the pro version of RFI Pro create a customized essay for him. And we're using Speechify for the audio. It's the speech thing made up by a dyslexic that things read to you. And he just lit up. He's like, I get to watch my favorite video. I said, oh, yes, we're going to take it apart piece by piece. You're going to spend hours on that video. He's like, cool. All right. Complete change. That's how important getting the speciality correct is. It's night and day difference. That's the best thing you can do to get started.
Mm-hmm. I really like that, Russell. It's such a simple yet powerful idea, like just noticing what makes each kid shine can make a huge difference in helping them feel capable and trusted. Yes, and this
Well,
is
yeah,
really,
but a lot of
yeah.
times it's hard to do because I mean, I had kids tell me they're interested in the transmissions of 1970s Ford F-150s. Okay.
Mhm.
You wouldn't believe the rather unique interest that they had. And the parents are like, how do I come up with something on this? I said, well, we're going to use that. I'll use the 5 Pro to come up with something custom for them that they're going to read, and we'll use Feature 5 for the audio. There are ways you can't find exact audiobook match, and we can adjust the grade level as they progress. The thing is, you got to find it, and then it's night and day. But if you don't find it, they're, as I said, they're just going to muddle through at best.
Yes, that's a really hopeful takeaway, Russell. And this is like a really profound conversation with you, Russell Van Brocklen. And soul first literacy is more than just a method, it's a movement away from shame and towards self trust, authenticity, and empowerment, I would say. And listeners, if you are listening now and have ever felt small, unseen, or stuck, let this be a reminder. Your soul already knows your worth, and trusting that truth is the beginning of every kind of freedom.